I went to a seminar in Memphis where the FDA was kind enough to actually put this on in conjunction with the United Natural Products Alliance. And there was the FDA inspectors who put on the seminar were the ones who actually taught all the inspectors how to go in and inspect a dietary supplement company. And they have some laboratory experience and they can always call in the experts. But one of the things I mentioned to him, we took a break and I walked over and I said, well, the thing I would look for is two things going in the lab other than dust on your HPLC where it's really not being run, but it's there for show. And there are companies, there's one in Washington that for years had that. They had a few pieces of lab equipment. When someone would come in, they just turn it on and someone would stand there in a lab coat. And you and I should have lab coats on now to look more professional. A white lab coat, we put the stethoscope around our neck and have a clipboard, and you have it way more efficient. But what happens is that you have laboratories like this, and you have to open the refrigerator and look at the standards they use for analysis and see that they're current and they're from a reputable source, someone like Chromadex. Then you need to do is, I was talking to the FDA inspector, I said, well, acetonitrile is what's used in an HPLC. There's only one solvent that really works. It's very expensive and it's hard to get because there's a shortage. They shut one of the factories down. And it has, there's a limited amount in the world. So if, in a good HPLC, if it's being run pretty much night and day, in a month should burn up about 4 or 5 liters. It's a cart big jug about like this of acetonitrile. And maybe you make a little less, but if you have someone who's bought one jug of acetonitrile in the last 2 years and they don't have invoices, but they've got all these lab results from their laboratory, then it's a good indicator that the HPLC is not really running and they're just writing stuff down so that when someone's coming in to look at them, it looks good. And the other thing is, you can always, if I was an inspector, I'd be saying, I'd like to look at your lab waste disposal records, where you call up someone like Safety-Kleen, who's certified, that comes in and takes the jugs of lab waste that you generate, where you're always having leftover waste. Because if you don't have those records, well, either you're guilty of throwing it in the sewer, which that's
really bad.
But if you've only got once a year you have 3 gallons of waste, you're not really running a laboratory. You're not generating anything. So there are little things to look for. I mean, even a doctor can go in a lab and ask a few questions. And so many companies have these labs. And then that brings me to one other thing is that before the new Part 111, some people would bring in outside services so that they can have a little sticker. We talked a little bit about this before. And you put on your label, GMP inspected by so-and-so, and use it in your marketing. And someone may come in and look at your GMP and your SOP and walk through your plant for a day and look at your records and see that you're doing what they believe is a passable job. And when you walk out the door, maybe you're doing not a good job, but they can come in and then they'll go out and they will take 1 or 2 of your products that they'll independently buy and they'll analyze it to see that it has vitamin C, the same amount you say on the label, or vitamin B12. And what's interesting is that there are a couple of them that are quite reputable, the USP, but they only do a certain limited number of tests. NSF, which has a massive laboratory and is a good quality, but they're very expensive. Once Part 111 comes in, some people...
Part 111?
Part 111 of the Food and Drug Regulations. Now that it's in effect, it's a more stringent standard for dietary supplement companies. The FDA will be inspecting more stringently, so people may not need to go out and have that certification. They may still want to do it. But then there are a few other people that provide, quote, certifications that don't even have laboratories. I mean, there's one that's just a post office box, and they get a lot of attention, and they don't actually have a lab, and they're very expensive, and it's kind of thing that if you sign up with their service and they analyze a product of yours and it's a few milligrams below label, they will let you know and they won't tell anyone. But if you don't want to sign up and pay them all that money, then they will sit there and analyze a few products and they'll tell everyone in the world that you're a few milligrams below your label amount, but they won't tell you what laboratory they used, and they refuse to disclose any of this. So it's kind of amusing that the world is in that situation where you don't know what is being done out there, because if you look at it, in many cases these people really aren't doing the right analysis, they're not following the right procedure, and getting the results they want because they're using the improper form of analysis. So they'll of course defend that to the end, that they're righteous, but it is a commercial venture. So I would much rather think that people should rely on someone that's reputable, like the NSF or even the USP, or they should work with their own laboratory or work with laboratories, such as Chromadex or Flora, someone that really knows analysis and of the specific substances we're talking about, and can do that in-depth analysis for dietary supplement ingredients.